Today we're going through the series in Genesis. We're going to be talking about two twin brothers in chapter 27. But let me say again to welcome to all of you who are visiting today, high school students, prospective students, parents, family members, friends, pastors. If you are here visiting, Biola wants to welcome you, so please stand so we can say thank you for being with us. Yeah. Sweet. I hope you feel the love. Biola is a healthy place in many ways. Literally, it was last year, Biola was named the #2 college in America for healthy students by Daily Beast. So there we go. And last month, Biola was named among 1,100 students the 4th safest campus in America. So parents, be assured that's a good thing. And the fact that we're in LA, should move us up a few notches. If you're the 4th safest and you're in LA, it's even better. So, hey, I was in San Jose meeting with some prospective students, and Stefan, a senior in high school, came. Woo? You know him? Yeah. Cool. Is that you? Was that the one we were talking last year? Are you kidding me? Get up here. Come here. Come here. Yeah. Get up here. Dude, I didn't know that was you. Yeah. Come here. A little love here. Yeah. So, Stefan, when he was a senior in high school, I didn't even know you came. Wow. Come on. Yeah. Do you remember the 2 questions? Yeah, so 2 questions Stefan said. He was a senior in high school. He said, these are 2 questions that I'm thinking about when I'm considering where to go to college. Where do I want to be when I'm at my best? And where do I want to be when I'm at my worst? So I told Stefan then I'd quote him, and I'm quoting you right now. So months later, and you're here. Are you feeling at your best right now? All right, sweet. Okay. Anyway, so proud of this community, faculty, and students. Just last week, the Chimes, our student newspaper, recognized by the Associated College Press with a Pacemaker Award as the outstanding online newspaper in the country, with Harvard, a school from Canada, beat out Princeton. So way to go, those of you who are working with the Chimes. Nicely done. Yeah. And it's Veterans Day, sort of. Tomorrow is Veterans Day, usually on a Monday. But I don't know, are there any veterans here or those who are active in the military? If you are here, we just want to say thank you. Stand up, and I just want to say thank you to where you are. Here we go, right here. Dude, yeah, right over here. Yeah. What Biola's been doing for a few years outside of chapel on this Veterans Day, sort of chapel day, there's going to be a table out there. We have mail for heroes to be able to show your support to veterans and signing letters to them. So again, guests, welcome. You are getting a taste of the life of Biola University today in many ways, and this is chapel. We're glad you're here. So a few weeks ago, I was over the home of where some of our recent Biola graduates live, and we were talking about roasting coffee, and I was bragging with one of the guys there, Zach King, and telling him that I had done a slow-mo video with my new iPhone for one of our recent chapel messages. And I said, I'm going to make another slow-mo video with my iPhone for this chapel today to welcome our special guests. But Zach had a better idea, and this is his idea.
Hey, I'm Zach King, and welcome to Biola University. As an alumnus of the school, I promise by the time you're done here, you'll be able to do amazing things.
Zach! Yo, Zach, think quick!
Nice try, Dr. Corey. Hey, enjoy Biola.
Welcome to Biola, where amazing things do happen. Yeah. So Zach King, Jade, and the team, thank you. Zach's just back from Kuwait where he's speaking there. Stand up, and I want Biola to recognize both of you. Zach's getting married next month, so that wedding video. Can't wait to see that video on Vine. So, actually, that video, I know you're going to think this is crazy, but this is my segue into the story of Genesis I started talking about a few minutes ago with our theme, beauty in messiness, that paradox that we all live with. And so you had a little bit of that, the messiness of all that stuff on my face, juxtaposed against the cinematic artistry of what Zach King and his team had done in that short little piece. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is my transition. So we're going to go right to Genesis 27, and we're going to get into this crazy story, and I want you to follow kind of closely with it because there's a lot going on here, and you got to keep in mind who the characters are. But Isaac, who is Abraham's son, is about to die. And a while ago, he and Rebekah, his wife, had two kids. They had twin boys, Esau and then Jacob, in that order. And when Rebekah was pregnant with the boys, she inquired of God. She said, like, hey, what's going on in my womb here? And God, who is the great ultrasound, right? He said, it's not a child in your womb, it is children in your womb. You have actually two. There are two children in your womb. And he actually said that two nations are in your womb. Two people will be separated from your body. One will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. It says that in Genesis 25, giving you a little context. So out come these two fraternal twins. You have Esau, the red, hairy twin that came out. And then you had Jacob, the smooth-skinned, soft, touchable boy that came out. And you have these two twins. And then what God does, that's actually not the real picture. That's just something we got off of internet. What God does is he disrupts the order of privilege, because usually the firstborn is the privileged one. But God says that Esau, the older, will serve Jacob, the younger. In other words, the stronger will serve the weaker. And this, by the way, is a theme that goes throughout all of Scripture, culminating in God, through his Son, redeeming us, the child of God who was born in Bethlehem in the stable to this teenage pregnant mother becomes the reigning and the exalted Christ. So these two brothers grow up with this kind of strange order understanding, and there begins to be some tension in their lives. And you remember the story one day when Esau was out hunting and came back famished. Jacob was like doing the stew thing and sold his birthright for a bowl of porridge. And as time went on, Esau, this hairy huntsman, became his father Isaac's favorite. And Jacob, the soft-skinned cook, became his mother Rebekah's favorite. So fast forward with me to the point that they're a little bit older, their father's dying, he is almost blind, and before we enter chapter 27, listen to what's happening at the end of chapter 26. It says, when Esau, the older twin brother of Jacob, was 40 years old, he married two Hittite women, Judith and Basemath. Love that. Take that right before algebra, I think you do, yeah. And they were a source of grief to Esau's parents, Isaac and Rebekah. So now, catch it, you have in-law problems, you have sibling rivalry, you have deception, you have favoritism, all going on in this story. The family is a mess, right? And it's getting messier. So Isaac on his deathbed tells Esau that he wants to bless him, Esau, the older, not Jacob. But the first thing he does, he says Esau ought to get some wild game, goes out hunting. And so Esau's out there with the bow and arrows, and this is where the plot really thickens, so stay tuned, right? Unbeknownst to Isaac, you guys okay with me? We're all right? Unbeknownst to Isaac the father, Rebekah's eavesdropping on their conversation, and she didn't want Esau to get the blessing. Why? Well, first of all, because Jacob's her favorite. And second, she remembers God says the blessing's going to go to Jacob and not to Esau. So she wanted to make sure that Jacob got this final deathbed blessing. So she connives this devious scheme. She tells Jacob to pretend he's Esau. And Jacob gets all stressed out about this. He knows his father's almost blind. He can probably fake the voice thing, and his father's not going to be able to see who it is, but he knows his father's, the nerve endings still work, right? So if his father touches him, he'll feel that this soft-skinned person is hardly the hairy Esau. So the mother thinks, I got an idea I'm going to do with this. I'm going to put Esau's clothes on you, and then I'm going to get some goat skin and put it on your arms and around your neck. You ever been to a petting zoo? Like pet a goat? That's what Esau's neck felt like. I don't know, ladies, if that's like a good thing or not, but so Jacob does this thing where it's actually like Halloween. Okay, an early Halloween, the mom gets the son dressed up in the costume for this ultimate trick or treat, right? Tricking Esau to get the treat of a blessing. I see that's a marginal reading. It's not in the Bible. I made that up, but worked. Maybe it worked. So remember, when the boys were in the womb, God gave this oracle saying that the older would serve the younger. And Isaac tries to change this by putting his blessing on his favorite son, the older one. And this is what Isaac says to who he thinks is Esau, but it's really Jacob. May nations serve you. This is verse 29, chapter 27. May nations serve you, Esau, he thinks, and people bow down to you. May be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. Well, that's not what God had said. And then the story gets even messier. So, beginning in verse 30, after Isaac finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, Esau came in from hunting. He'd prepared tasty food and brought it to his father, and then he said to him, "My father, please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing." His father asked him, "Who are you?" "I'm your son," he answered, "your firstborn Esau." And Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came in, and I blessed him. And indeed, he will be blessed." And when Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "You blessed me. Me too, my father." But Isaac said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "This is the second time he's taken advantage of me. Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, "I made him lord over you. So what can I possibly do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me, my father." Then Esau wept aloud. The story goes on to say that Esau at that point began to determine that he was going to kill Jacob as soon as his father Isaac had died. Rebekah, eavesdropping one more time, hears this story. She tells her son Jacob, her precious, smooth-skinned son, to run and to go, and he flees. And then chapter 27 ends the way chapter 26 ended, where Rebekah is very upset about Esau's selection of wives. Verse 46, then Rebekah said to Isaac, "I'm disgusted with living because of these Hittite daughters-in-law, the wives of Esau." So I told you this story is like a complete mess. And as I read over and over this story in preparation for this morning, the one question that kept coming to my mind was this, like, whose fault? Whose fault is it that this godly family from such a great spiritual heritage out of Abraham got so messed up? Who do you blame? Is it Isaac, the father's fault? Or maybe it's Jacob, the younger twin brother. Or maybe it's Esau, the older twin brother. Or maybe it's Rebekah, the conniving mother. Or maybe it's a combination of all of the above. Who caused this heartache and this turmoil? So this is a story of a family of 4 in the Bible, mom, dad, and the 2 kids. This year we're exploring the biblical theme in chapel of life together, living in community the way God intended it to be. And you're thinking, like, Corey, this is like, isn't that great of an example? This is like more of life apart, or life fragmented, or life disrupted than life together. Why are you taking us to this story on this theme of life together? Well, for one, it was like the next chapter in this series of Genesis that we're going through, so we're going to find something there that is true, and let's see how it all fits together. But secondly, I believe that God, through his grace and his ultimate sovereign mercy, finds beauty and community in the messiness of our life. So let's dig a little deeper in our final few minutes to find virtue in the messiness of this story. So to get there, let me repeat that logical and sensible question that I think any one of you would have asked as you read this story. Whose fault is it that this family came to such a crisis? Now, you are all intelligent, Biola, educated, big worldview students and future students. I was going to say prospective, but I said future, just as a prophetic word over here. I'm not a prophet, and I work for a nonprofit organization, so that doesn't help me either. So who do you think messed up in this godly family? Well, Isaac is a great one to blame. So, okay, let's blame Isaac. He knew God said the blessing really belonged to Jacob, but he decides that he likes his Russell Crowe-like son better than his Wolfgang Puck-like son, and so he's going to put the blessing on his older son despite what God had said. So let's put the blame on the dad who's choosing favorites. Okay, no, let's put the blame on Jacob. It's his fault. Jacob is really at the low end of the ethical decision-making scale, if you remember Lawrence Kohlberg and that kind of stuff from general psychology. When his mother presents the plan, Jacob doesn't say, Mom, that plan really lacks integrity. What he says is, well, what happens if I get caught? Verse 12, I'm afraid to do this because if I get caught, then I'll get a curse instead of a blessing. You see, Jacob didn't really care about the morality of the plan. He cared about the success of the plan. He was in it for what was there for him. And on top of that, he used God's name as an alibi for when he came in to see his father. His father said, how did you come back so fast? I just sent you out hunting, and here you are with a wild game all cooked and preserved. And this is what Jacob says in verse 20. Because the Lord your God caused it to come to me. So that's like so wrong, right? Like lying about God in the middle of all this. So maybe it's Jacob's fault, or it's Esau's fault, okay? Esau never shows any sign about seeking after God. He only shows signs of seeking after a blessing. This is what he wants. He even goes on and marries these 2 pagan wives because he can do what he wants to do on his own terms without any consideration for the terms of the covenant that God had laid out to his grandfather Abraham. And his ungodly choices grieved his parents, so it's Esau's fault. Or is it? Or maybe it's Rebekah's fault. She received the oracle from the Lord when she was pregnant that God was going to have the blessing on Jacob and that Jacob would be served by Esau. So why did she, Rebekah, the mom, helicoptering, have to eavesdrop on the conversation, scheme and disguise her favorite son, Jacob, as Esau? Why couldn't she have just trusted God that he would do what he said he was going to do? Instead, she had to butt in, thinking that God needed some help in fulfilling his promises. And everything begins to unravel. And the more and harder she tries, the more deviously the plan gets. And all she's trying to do is help God do what he said he was going to do. So whose fault is it in the messiness of this family? Well, here's my answer. In this family feud to receive God's blessing, everyone messes up. And they do so with consequences because they try to take God's promises into their own hands and help him along the way. Husband and wife, Isaac and Rebekah, after this story, are never seen interacting again. Esau is vengeful, and he is out to hunt down his brother who stole his blessing not once but twice. Jacob is on the run. The family's been decimated. He never sees his mother again. And Jacob, the bearer of the blessing, ends up becoming the fugitive. All because they wanted shortcuts to God's blessings, because they thought God needed help being sovereign over their situation. Everybody is making mistakes in this story. But what emerges from this is that despite these messes and family mistakes, grace is still at work in their family, and grace will not let them go. They're all trying so hard for what? For God's blessing. They're trying for something that had already been promised to Abraham. Last month we talked about the Abrahamic blessing in here, that all people and all nations will be blessed through his seed, which includes us through the New Testament understanding, the seed of Abraham today. So what's the takeaway? The takeaway is this, students. Don't live your life trying to control that which God has already promised. Instead, live your life around the truth that God is sovereign. God is in control, and you can trust him with your life. There are lots of sins that we wrestle with. Greed and pride and lust and anger. And these are my sins too, battling them every day. But the sin I struggle most with is an inability to trust God. And I'm telling you that this is my biggest demon. I want to control situations, and I want to make a plan that's my own. And when things don't go my way, when pumpkin pie and smoothies and water balloons all come flying at me from every direction, I want to control it. I want to make it go away. I want to retaliate. I want to complain. And when things aren't working out like I planned, I get anxious and I begin to feel like I'm losing control. And I begin to worry and I try to fix it. And whenever I try to fix it on my own, worry takes over. And when worry takes over, it sucks the joy out of my life. Of course, I need a plan, and I want to do planning well. It's part of my job. But I want to plan in a way that I leave my plans in open hands, for God might have something else in mind than I have thought about and planned for. And why do I have to always try to manipulate situations to get them to go my way? Because I've stopped trusting in the promises of God. And why do I have to scramble to dress up Jacob to look like Esau in order for God to notice? As if God needs some help doing what he said he'd do. Where's the Holy Spirit in all of my obsession to control? May I not be so bound to a plan, and may I not be such a control monger that I forget that God is sovereign and the kingdom of God works organically as the Spirit leads. Those of you reading Acts, remember that Europe was not in the Apostle Paul's next steps, but the Spirit intervened and stepped in through this Macedonian call. And may I listen to the Spirit's voice. And that means prayer. And that means a posture of humility. And that means being part of life together in Christian community. May these be my markers now more than ever. So students, it's not about trying harder, for that only got Isaac and Rebekah's family into more trouble. It's about training your hearts to trust in God. It seems that the problem in the family was a spiritual problem. So we need spiritual solutions to the messiness of life. And sometimes the harder you try to resolve things on your own, the bigger the mess. Sometimes you need to trust more and try less in the messiness and the uncertainty of your life. Shelby gave us that example of trusting God in the messiness of her life just a few moments ago. And when life is messy, we either try to control everything, or we sometimes can give up in despair. And when we do, we can find a lesson in Genesis 27. Remember, God had a plan in his covenant to Abraham to bless all nations, and he was going to do it through us, Jacob's seed, found in the fulfillment of Christ the Messiah. And you and I carry that blessing, and through our messiness, we're still called to be a blessing to the nations. So the purposes of God Biola students, they will be fulfilled. And he will accomplish his sovereign plan, despite our trying to get in the way with our own control freakishness. It would be far better if we let God fulfill his plans through our trusting obedience rather than despite our neurotic control. So what if this family of 4 made their decisions on trusting and not on trying? Isaac would have said this, Lord, you know, I don't get it all. You've got a plan for my family and you've got a plan for my boys. And I heard in that oracle that the older will serve the younger. And even if it's not exactly how I'd want to parent, Lord, I'm going to trust you with these boys of mine. Esau would have said, you know, I need to be content in God's direction for our family. And I'm going to choose a wife who loves you more than me. Rebecca, she would have said, God, you made a promise to me about the 2 boys. And at that point, the blessing was certain. It was done, period. And I don't need to force things to happen. I simply need to trust you with my children. Jacob would have said, I'm the youngest and the weakest in my family. But Lord, if you trust me as you said you would, I'm willing to follow you wherever you'd lead me to go. This year, our theme at Biola is Life Together, reflecting on the virtues of living in a God-centered community. And community happens when we live in a trusting way, not a manipulative way. When we don't try to fix everything because we need to be in control. So this Genesis 27 story is for you, who are in the middle of a messy journey and you can't see God in it. The story is for you who want to see God's plan working out in your life when everything else isn't. This story is for me. Has trouble trusting God because I'm so certain that I can do it all myself. So the story isn't so much about about Isaac or Rebecca or Esau or Jacob. Carly, get up here, start playing something spiritual, and we're going to end this whole thing right now. This story is about the sovereignty of God, about the abundant grace of God that fills the messiness of your life. You just trust him. Someone told me once that the 8th most dangerous words in the English language are, I've got to get control of my life. But the truth is, in the paradox of God, the gospel of Jesus Christ, we gain control by relinquishing control. We say, Lord, I need to decrease so that you can increase. In the long run, the mess in your life will become beautiful. And it even did for these brothers. Jacob one day leads his family in righteousness, decades later. In one of the most powerful stories in Scripture, Esau one day forgives his brother in a weeping reunion. The mess will become beautiful for you. Isaiah says God will make your crooked road straight. He will make sense one day of the messiness. You just trust him. And Isaiah says those deep valleys that you're in, they're going to be filled up. And those huge mountains that are overwhelming to you, they're going to be brought down. And those rough roads, they're going to be made smooth. And that means you keep your eyes fixed on Jesus amidst the messiness of your life. And as you do, he will walk with you and fill in those valleys and knock down those mountains and smooth out those rough roads. We don't need to be control. We need to be obedient. God's promise in 1 Corinthians 2 is no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no human mind has conceived the things that God has prepared for those who love him, for those who trust him in the messiness of their life. So maybe you're there, prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to lead the God I love. Here's my heart. You take, you seal it. Seal it for thy courts above.
We hope you enjoyed this message. Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Learn more at biola.edu.